A cartoon once joked about a Nobel Prize winner, a future president, a giant media merger, and a tiger attack long before any of them happened in real life. That is why The Simpsons still feels unsettling today. Some scenes were only jokes, but when reality later matched them, people started asking the same question again and again. Was the show just lucky, or was it seeing the world more clearly than anyone expected? The cleanest example is Elementary School Musical. In that episode, Milhouse puts money on Bengt R. Holmstrom, winning the 2016 Nobel Prize in Economics. Years later, the real award went to Holmstrom, and that made the joke look almost impossible. What matters here is the detail. It was not a vague guess about science or a random future prize. It named a real person, in a real field, and the outcome came true 6 years later. That is why this episode is often treated as one of the most credible Simpsons matches. The scene stands out because the joke was hidden inside a future setting, so when the award happened, people could point back and say the show named the correct winner early. Bart to the Future became even more famous for a different reason. The episode shows Lisa Simpson as president after President Trump, with the country left in a budget mess. At the time, it looked like sharp political satire aimed at Trump's public image. But in 2016, Donald Trump actually won the presidency, and the old joke suddenly felt eerie. The episode did not invent the future on purpose, but it showed how a comedy line could later feel like a headline. That is the power of long-running satire. It mocks the present, and then history changes in a way that makes the joke look prophetic. The line was written as humor in 2000, yet it came back with new meaning after Trump's real campaign and victory. Another reason people keep talking about The Simpsons is the Disney and Fox merger joke in When You Dish Upon a Star. In the episode, a sign reads 20th Century Fox, a division of Walt Disney Company. At the time, it was just a quick background gag. But in 2017, Disney announced that it would acquire 21st Century Fox, including 20th Century Fox. That is the kind of detail people cannot ignore. It was not a giant plot point, not a dramatic speech, just a sign in the background. Yet that small visual ended up matching a major corporate deal years later. Nobody expected a throwaway sign to age into a real business headline, which is exactly why people still remember it. The White Tiger attack in Springfield is another moment that feels too close to real life. The episode includes a Siegfried and Roy-style magic act, and the performers are attacked on stage by a white tiger. Then, in 2003, Roy Horn was mauled by a white tiger during a real performance in Las Vegas. This is one of the strongest examples because the visual idea was so specific. It was not a random animal joke. It mirrored a famous entertainment duo and a real tragedy. The scene shows how The Simpsons often exaggerated real-world culture, and sometimes the real world later crossed the exact same line. The episode was never meant as a prediction, which is what makes the match so strange. Lisa's wedding is one of the best examples of the show getting future technology surprisingly right. The episode is set in a future version of Springfield, where characters use video phones and a wristwatch-style device for communication. Today, that does not sound strange at all. Smartwatches, FaceTime, and video calling are normal parts of life. The episode did not invent these tools, but it imagined the basic idea long before they became common. That is why people still bring it up. It looks less like a lucky guess and more like a comedy writer's smart guess about where technology was heading. It also shows that the show often predicted habits before it predicted exact products. Some later comparisons are not pure predictions, but they still add to the legend. In Lisa Goes Gaga, Lady Gaga performs a flying aerial routine in Springfield, and years later, people compared it to her Super Bowl show. In The Musk Who Fell to Earth, Elon Musk appears in an episode that later looked even more interesting after his Twitter takeover. Homer's chalkboard equation in The Wizard of Evergreen Terrace also got attention because science writers connected it to the Higgs boson discussion years later. The same kind of surprise appears in other episodes too, like the three-eyed fish called Blinky and the old flu outbreak in Margin Chains. These are not the same as a direct prophecy. They are better described as striking parallels, where a joke or visual detail later looked much more meaningful than it first seemed. The show's reputation also grows because the internet loves false predictions. That is why it is important to separate real matches from fake ones. The 9/11 bill image, the Ebola book cover, altered COVID memes, Trump coffin images, and other viral disaster posts have all been used as proof that The Simpsons can see the future. But these examples do not hold up under fact-checking. Some were edited images. Some were based on old jokes with no connection to the event claimed. Others were simply reposted so many times that people forgot to ask where they came from. Reuters, PolitiFact, and Snopes have all pushed back on the biggest false claims, and their reporting shows how easy it is for a meme to become a myth. This is where the story becomes less about prophecy and more about how people want a cartoon to explain chaos. What really explains The Simpsons is not magic. It is satire, timing, and a huge number of episodes that cover politics, business, science, and daily life. If a show runs long enough and jokes about enough real-world topics, some of those jokes will later line up with actual events. That does not mean the writers had a crystal ball. It means they were paying attention to the world around them and turning trends into comedy. The deeper lesson is that people remember the hits and forget the misses. With decades of episodes, The Simpsons has enough material for fans to search backward and build a pattern. That is not proof of prophecy. It is proof that the human brain loves connections, especially when the connection is funny, surprising, or unsettling. Bill Oakley's point matters here. The show usually worked by pulling from older real life, then exaggerating it for comedy. That is why so many predictions are really echoes of things people had already seen in politics, business, or technology. Once you understand that, the mystery becomes easier to explain. That is why the same old clip can feel brand new years later. The joke stayed the same, but the world changed around it, and that change made the line look smarter than anyone expected at the time. It is a rare kind of comedy power after all. The Simpsons also felt accurate because its writers understood real-world trends before most people noticed them. Many writers had strong backgrounds in science, math, and politics, so their jokes were often based on real ideas instead of random fantasy. They exaggerated modern problems for comedy, and years later, reality sometimes moved in the same direction. That is why old episodes about technology, politics, and media still feel strangely modern today. The show was not predicting the future. It was simply very good at understanding people and society. So, the truth behind The Simpsons is simple and fascinating at the same time. Some moments were real coincidences, some were sharp satire, and some became famous because the internet kept repeating them. But the strongest examples are still hard to ignore. They remind us that good comedy can age in strange ways. Thank you for watching. Please hit the like button and don't forget to subscribe for more valuable insights. More surprising stories are coming next. And the next one may be even stranger than this one.